Right now, somewhere in your home, there is an animal sleeping. Maybe on your bed, maybe on the couch, maybe curled up on the floor beside you. And if you look at it, really look at it, you're looking at the end result of one of the most extraordinary relationships in the history of life on Earth. But here's what nobody tells you about that animal. It didn't start as your companion. It started as your predator. 30,000 years ago, if you were a human being alive on this planet, wolves were one of the things that could kill you. Not just kill you, hunt you. They ran in packs. They coordinated attacks. They could smell you from miles away and track you across terrain that would take humans days to cross. And yet, somehow, that animal, the one sleeping next to you right now, chose us, not the other way around. The wolf chose the human, and the story of how that happened will change the way you look at your dog forever. Let's go back to the beginning. Around 25,000 to 40,000 years ago, scientists are still debating the exact date, humans and wolves were sharing the same landscape, the same forests, the same plains, the same prey. They were competitors. When a mammoth went down, both species wanted it. When reindeer migrated across the steppe, both species followed. For thousands of years, humans and wolves existed in the same world the way two rival gangs might share a city, aware of each other, wary of each other, occasionally violent toward each other. But something was already different about wolves compared to every other predator humans encountered. Wolves, like humans, lived in tight social groups. Wolves, like humans, cooperated to hunt prey much larger than themselves. Wolves, like humans, communicated constantly with the members of their group. They weren't just animals to early humans. They were something almost recognizable. Something that hunted the way humans hunted. Something that lived the way humans lived. Now here's where the story gets strange. Because the domestication of wolves didn't start with humans capturing wolf pups and raising them. That's the story most people imagine. A kind-hearted ancient human finds an abandoned wolf pup, raises it, and slowly, over generations, dogs. That's not what happened. The wolves came to us. Here's why. Ancient human camps were, from a wolf's perspective, one of the most interesting places on the landscape. Humans are messy eaters. After a hunt, they left behind bones, scraps, fat, skin, waste that represented enormous caloric value to an animal that spent most of its energy hunting. A wolf that could access human camp waste didn't need to hunt as much. A wolf that didn't need to hunt as much survived better. A wolf that survived better had more offspring. So the wolves that were bold enough and calm enough to approach human camps without triggering a spear throw were quietly, invisibly passing that calmness on to their pups. Generation after generation. The bold wolves ate. The fearful wolves starved. The aggressive wolves got killed. And slowly, at the edges of human camps across the ancient world, a new kind of wolf was emerging. In 1959, a Soviet scientist named Dmitry Belyaev started one of the most remarkable experiments in the history of biology. He took wild silver foxes and began selectively breeding them. But he only selected for one trait. Not size, not color, not intelligence, tameness. Each generation, he took only the calmest foxes, the ones least afraid of humans, and bred them together. That's it. That's the whole experiment. Within 6 generations, something extraordinary happened. The foxes started behaving like dogs. They wagged their tails. They whimpered for human attention. They sought eye contact with their handlers. But then something nobody expected happened. Their bodies started changing too. Their ears became floppy. Their snouts shortened. Their fur developed patches and spots. Their tails curled upward. Nobody selected for any of those physical changes. Nobody wanted floppy ears or spotted fur. It came as a package deal with tameness. Scientists now call this the domestication syndrome. When you select any wild animal for reduced fear of humans, a whole suite of physical and behavioral changes follow automatically. And this is exactly what was happening at the edges of human camps 30,000 years ago. The wolves selecting themselves for human proximity were slowly, generation by generation, becoming something new. Not quite wolf anymore, not yet dog, something in between. Now here's the part that stops most people cold. Think about what this looked like from the human side. You're living 25,000 years ago. You're sitting by your fire at night. And at the edge of the firelight, just beyond where the darkness begins, you can see eyes, reflecting the fire back at you. Wolves, every night, watching. For most of human prehistory, this would have been terrifying. You'd grab your spear, you'd throw rocks, you'd drive them away. But at some point, and nobody knows exactly when or where, some group of humans made a different decision. They didn't drive them away. They threw them a bone. Maybe it was practical. Maybe they noticed the wolves were warning them when other predators approached. Maybe a child started feeding one without the adults noticing. Whatever the reason, in that moment, that single moment when one human threw food toward a wolf instead of a spear, the entire trajectory of human history changed. Because here's what happened next. The wolf that was calm enough to catch that food instead of running away had more access to calories. More calories meant better survival. Better survival meant more offspring. And those offspring were slightly calmer than average wolves, slightly more comfortable around humans, slightly more likely to hang around rather than flee. Over hundreds of generations, this selection pressure was relentless and invisible. Nobody was breeding dogs. Nobody had a plan. They were just throwing scraps to the wolves that didn't run, and evolution was doing the rest. The first proto-dogs would have been extraordinarily useful to early humans. Think about what a wolf brings to a hunting partnership. A nose that can smell prey from miles away. Ears that can detect approaching predators long before human senses could. Speed and endurance that no human could match. The ability to track wounded animals through terrain and darkness. Researchers believe that humans who hunted with proto-dogs were dramatically more successful than those who didn't. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups show that hunting with dogs increases success rates by over 50%. That's not a small advantage. In a world where a failed hunt could mean starvation, that's the difference between survival and death. Some anthropologists believe the partnership with dogs gave certain human groups such a decisive advantage that it changed which humans survived, which groups expanded, which populations spread across the planet. You might be alive right now because 25,000 years ago, one of your ancestors threw a bone to a wolf that didn't run. But the story doesn't end there, because something happened between humans and dogs that went beyond usefulness. Something that no scientist fully predicted and no one can completely explain. When a human looks into a dog's eyes, both the human and the dog release oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone associated with bonding, love, and trust. The same hormone released between a mother and her newborn child, between a human and a dog, two species that diverged millions of years ago. The same biological bonding mechanism activates. This doesn't happen with wolves. It doesn't happen with cats in the same way. It doesn't happen with any other animal on Earth with the same intensity. Only dogs. Over thousands of years of living alongside humans, dogs evolved the biological machinery to bond with us. And we evolved the biological response to bond back. We didn't just domesticate dogs, we changed each other. In Germany, archaeologists found a grave. It was 14,000 years old. Inside were the remains of a man, a woman, and a dog. They were buried together, intentionally, carefully. The dog had suffered from a severe illness as a puppy, an illness that would have required weeks of care and feeding to survive. Someone nursed that dog back to health. 14,000 years ago, when food was scarce and survival was brutal and every calorie mattered, a human being spent precious resources keeping a sick dog alive. Not because it was useful, because they didn't want it to die. Think about what that means. So where does this leave us? The dog sleeping near you right now is not a tamed wild animal. It's not a wolf that learned some tricks. It is something that has never existed before in the history of life on this planet. A creature shaped by 30,000 years of living alongside humans. Shaped by our fires, our camps, our scraps, our affection, and our grief. A creature that evolved, at the genetic level,
to love us. Not because we forced it, not because we captured it, because 30,000 years ago, in the darkness beyond a fire, a wolf made a calculation. The humans aren't attacking tonight. Maybe I'll get a little closer, and closer, and closer, until one night, without anyone planning it, without anyone understanding what was happening, the wolf was inside the firelight, and it never left. That wolf is still there, sleeping beside you, waiting for you to wake up, completely certain, in whatever way a dog is certain of anything, that you are its person. It took 30,000 years to get there, and it started with one wolf deciding not to run.